a tiny island nation in the South Pacific, home to the Hobbits and Middle-earth. New Zealand is more known for its legendary All Blacks rugby team than the All Whites on the football pitch. But with an expanded field at the 2026 World Cup is an elusive first World Cup victory finally in their sights. Welcome to Kickback Soccer Media's World Cup Capsules, where you'll learn everything you need to know about all 48 of the national teams competing at the 2026 World Cup, from the history of the game, the nation's current World Cup trajectory, unsung heroes, and cultural moments. I'm David Goss, and today we are talking about the big fish in the small pond of Oceania, the All Whites of New Zealand. Soccer came to New Zealand, how else, but with the British soldiers and immigrants in the late 1800s, like it did for many countries, with clubs forming as early as 1882. New Zealand's first international football match was played in Dunedin at the old Caledonian ground on the 23rd of July, all the way back in 1904, against a team representing New South Wales. A year later, the team went on a tour to Australia and played 11 representative sides. A New Zealand national team did not play again until 1922, almost 20 years later. Their first two international opponents were Australia and Canada in the 1920s. Soccer's popularity stalled for decades as this sports-mad nation fell in love with other games. Rugby the biggest, cricket and netball flourished as New Zealand became a world-class sports nation. Domestically, there were only two fully professional clubs in all of New Zealand. There's Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix, and those two play in the Australian A-League. New Zealand has the NZNL, the New Zealand Men's National League. Known as the Detol Men's National League for sponsorship reasons, it's an amateur men's football league at the top of the New Zealand Football League system. It was founded in 2004 to replace a previous league. So there have been organized leagues going back decades, but all of it has been at the amateur level. Famously, Auckland City, which is part of that NZNL, has made headlines globally in their consistent placement in the Club World Cup, but most famously in the summer of 2025 in the newly established and expanded Club World Cup. They became one of the tournament darlings for their amateur status, having multiple employees talk about the vacation and PTO time they had to take from their full-time jobs to travel to the U.S. and play against some giant teams. And they did tie Boca Juniors. The All Whites have qualified for the World Cup two other times, in 1982 and 2010. In 82, they lost all three games, 5-2 against Scotland, 3-0 against the Soviet Union, and 4-0 against Brazil. In 2010, though, they didn't win a game, but they didn't lose a game either. They drew all three of their group stage matches against Paraguay, who consistently made the World Cup, Slovakia, and Italy, the reigning World Cup champion. So they didn't get out of the group stage, but it was a really strong showing. But something odd happened in 2006. Australia left Oceania and joined the Asian Football Confederation. That opened up the path for New Zealand to breeze through Oceania qualifying, but because of Oceania's status, they've only ever had a half spot in a World Cup, which means they never directly qualify out of their region, and they have to go to an intercontinental playoffs. There, the All Whites have struggled, losing in 2014, 18, and 2022 in those playoffs. They did, though, get marginally better. In 14, they lost to Mexico 9-3 on aggregate. In 18, they lost to Peru 2-0 on aggregate. And then in 2022, they lost a single game to Costa Rica 1-0. But the road to 2026 looked different. With the expanded World Cup for the first time ever, the Oceania region had a direct slot into the competition. And as expected, the All Whites went to work. They won all five of their games, a combined aggregate score of 29-1. The tactical identity is set by head coach Darren Baisley, who has been involved with this program for a long time, going back to 2011. He was a longtime assistant to Anthony Hudson and actually worked in the United States at the Colorado Rapids as Hudson's assistant, but he took charge on an interim basis for New Zealand back in March of 2023 and was confirmed later in the year as the full-time manager. Baisley's New Zealand team have been able to take care of business against all OFC opponents. They've also gotten some decent results in friendlies, like beating China and drawing Ireland and drawing the U.S., but they are winless in their last 7, losing to Ukraine, Poland, and twice to Australia. This New Zealand team sits in an interesting place. Oceania competition's not competitive enough, but it seems like everything outside of that is a little too difficult. But they have been able to grind out some draws and occasional wins against superior opponents, and that is going to be the focus of the 2026 World Cup. New Zealand hopes to continue to improve going forward, and to do so, they are looking at one of their bright up-and-coming players in Luke Brooke-Smith. He plays for the Wellington Phoenix. He's the youngest A-League men's player in Phoenix history. He earned his first senior national team call-up in September, becoming the youngest all-white in 45 years at just 17 years old and 95 days. He still plays with New Zealand's youth teams, but is making a push for a World Cup spot in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Quote, I think the challenge for him now is he needs to have a really big season down at the Phoenix, Baisley said of the young prodigy. Hopefully he's after that breakout season. Scores goals, plays a lot of minutes, that's up to him. What we've seen in him is that he's a little bit different to any other player we have. He has a bit of pace. He likes to take people on. That's something that we're probably missing in our squad. When you think about the sport in New Zealand, one of the biggest names and first that comes to mind is Chris Wood, who will end his career most definitely as the top goal scorer in all whites history. He is tied for most caps right now at 88, and on 45 goals, he is 16 ahead of the second place, and no current player is in the top 10. Born in Auckland, Wood started his career locally at the age of 14. After impressing in New Zealand, he had a successful trial with West Bromwich Albion, where he signed for their academy. He spent the next 4 years with West Brom. He went on loan 5 separate times before later joining Leicester City for 3 seasons, including being part of their promotion to the Premier League. He then went back to the Championship with Leeds United, had 2 great years where he scored 44 goals across 88 games. That earned him a $15 million move to Premier League side Burnley, where he played for 5 seasons, all of them in the Premier League. He scored 53 goals in 165 matches. Wood then earned another transfer, this time to Newcastle, for £25 million. He spent a year and a half there before being loaned to Nottingham Forest, also in the Premier League. And then he found success at Nottingham, where he scored 39 goals in 91 matches. He is, on this roster, one of only 2 players who was on the 2010 World Cup squad and will look to bring his experience and leadership to this group. Moving on, let's talk about New Zealand's best moment in their soccer history. Chris Woods, as all New Zealand fans will, looks back fondly on the 2010 World Cup and, most importantly, the 1-1 draw with defending champions Italy. That squad with Fabio Cannavaro, Daniel De Rossi, Giorgio Chiellini, they hung tight. Their only shot on goal for the whole match was a Shane Smeltz tap-in attempt after a Cannavaro misjudged free kick, but there were 4 amateurs on that New Zealand squad against Italy. One of them, Andy Barron, who worked in a bank, came on as a sub against Italy. Most of the other New Zealand players were from the lower league of England, the A-League, some other lower leagues around the world. They exited after the group stage, but they finished above Italy in the group. Quote, I think that stopped the nation, said New Zealand coach Ricky Herbert. It's the most incredible result we've had across the board. As a football coach, it's way above anything we've achieved in the history of the game. Now, the women's side is well experienced at World Cups. They've consistently qualified, and they had the chance to host a World Cup just recently in 2023. The opening match was a 1-0 upset over Norway at Eden Park in front of a sold-out 45,000 fans for the nation's first ever World Cup win on either the men's or women's side. That's it for the All Whites bet. As always, we leave you with a prediction and a fun fact. Just being back on the World Cup stage is big for Darren Bazley and his squad. The potential, though, if they get the right draw, this team has hung with international World Cup level opponents over the last 12 months. If they're able to play the right game on the right day, they could get a win. With the best third place teams going through, this could be their opportunity to make history either with that victory or with the potential of getting out of the World Cup group stage. For your fun fact, this will not surprise you that people in New Zealand love a weird sport. The first ever organized commercial bungee jump occurred in New Zealand in 1986 when entrepreneur AJ Hackett bungee jumped off of Auckland's Greenhip Bridge. I believe it. I wouldn't do it, but only someone from New Zealand could be the first ever to try bungee jumping out in the real world. Stay tuned for the rest of Kickback's World Cup capsules, and make sure to follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcasts.